Just got back from the doctor's. Guess who can legally say retard now? I wish I had one of the useful autisms, like being good at math or something. Instead, I just memorized the entire Borderlands 2 main story script and read Tomb Raider fanfictions at 3 in the morning. Some of my current hyperfixations consist of Zenless Zone Zero, in case that one wasn't obvious, Tomb Raider, because of course, and Shadow Slave, because some dude in my comments said it was interesting and now it's my entire personality. At least YouTube is a good outlet for me to ramble about my obsessions, and you, dear victim, are gonna strap in and listen whether you like it or not. Our story begins in the void, and I totally called it. Kinda. Sunny has finally escaped from the Forgotten Shore, but unfortunately for me specifically, Nephis wasn't able to join him. He checks his stats or whatever it was called, I forgot, and the spell informs him of his servitude to Changing Star. It informs Sunny of some interesting things. Sunny is able to see, quite literally, everything Nephis has got going for her. Her memories, aspects, attributes, along with all of her bust, waist, and I don't think we ever are explicitly told, but I'm assuming Nephis now has access to all of Sunny's stuff as well. You know what would have been cool that the two can do that I just thought of? The Star Wars sequels are kinda very doo-doo, but the Force Dyad was an interesting concept, and so I thought it would have been interesting if Sunny and Nephis could share each other's memories or echoes due to the Shadow Slave bond that they have. It would make for some pretty fire fight scenes, especially if Sunny was with characters like Cassie and Effie, and all of a sudden he just whips out Neph's sword, or Nephis just calls upon Saint for backup. That would be pretty cash. In the void, Sunny notices he has 2 shadows now, which isn't too weird. He is Shadow Boy after all. The weird part is that he now has 2 shadow cores. Typically, and by typically I mean 100% of the time, humans only have 1 core, and only nightmare creatures get more than 1. Can you guess what the maximum number of cores are? If your answer was anything other than 7, you might be retarded. Also, to no one's surprise, Nephis also has multiple soul cores, but I couldn't tell you the implications of that. In fact, I have no clue why Sunny or Nephis have multiple cores. Things like gods and demons are becoming a bigger thing in the story due to this volume, and as far as I know, neither gods or demons have multiple cores, or any cores, so whatever the reason the two have multiple cores is an enigma to me. Some of the things we learn about my wife are some of her attributes that we didn't know about before. The first one is dream spawn, which essentially she got from being born from a hollow, which raises some important questions. A hollow is someone whose soul was killed in the dream realm while their physical body remained. When Nephis was conceived, was it before or after her mom went hollow? Because if it was before, that's one thing, but what are the implications if it was after? Hollows are pretty much brain dead, so did Neph's dad... You know, I guess she could have been conceived, then her mom went hollow mid-pregnancy, but this isn't something I want to think about any longer. There's also the Nephilim attribute, and no, unfortunately, she's not the cool ones from the Bible. It said Nephilim were creatures born from an unholy union between the divine and profane, and Nephis is apparently one of these. The divine and profane is an interesting choice of words because this volume delves heavily into the gods and demons, so it's possible Nephilim are products born from a union between the gods and demons, but then the question becomes, how is Nephis one of these Nephilim? Her mom and dad are still mostly unknown, but mayhaps the two are descendants of the divine and profane, and the two got together to secure the bloodline, kinda like Assassin's Creed Odyssey. The last one of interest is her attribute, the fire, which tells that she inherited the lineage of the sun god. I have a theory about this, but I'm gonna wait till later when it becomes more relevant. Anyway, Sunny awakens back in the academy from the beginning of the series, along with Cassie and the other 100 survivors of the Forgotten Shore. Kai and Effie are elsewhere because they weren't students, at least I don't think so. The only sleeper still trapped in the dream realm is Nephis, who is contained in a separate room from everyone else. Castor is still dead, kinda. Wouldn't he technically be a hollow now? His real body should still be alive, but it's never brought up, and if I had to make a guess, I'm assuming the big bats just killed his real body. The entire world is in an uproar after 100 or so sleepers, some of which who've been asleep for years just suddenly woke up. The entire group of now awakened are gathered in a single area where they're interviewed about their experience in the Forgotten Shore. You know, all awakened are extremely attractive due to the effects of the spell, which usually causes their body to physically change before them when it happens, yet not once when Sunny was changing and getting hotter did his height ever change. The spell itself has confirmed that short kings are just as attractive as tall people, and I finally feel represented. He's just like me, for real, for real. In a room deep within the academy, Cassie was visiting the still sleeping Nephis. Sunny comes to visit her as well, and he is absolutely pissed to see Cassie's face. It was Cassie who told Nephis about Sunny's true name, which is what prevented Sunny from staying with Nephis in the realm. Not only that, but he's now enslaved to Nephis, which, if you know anything about Sunny, is the worst possible thing that could happen to him. Sunny's whole thing was that despite his horrible upbringing, his affliction to the spell, even being stranded in the Forgotten Shore, he was still free. He was the only one in control of his actions, and freedom is all he ever needed. Yet Cassie, one of two people he thought he could blindly trust, backstabbed him and made his worst nightmare come true. Cassie knew what the vision she had meant, of shadows devouring an angel. She tried everything in her power to save both Sunny and Neph, but nothing worked. In the end, she had to choose between one or the other, and Cassie chose Neph. Understandable. Sunny has changed and grown a lot during their time in the dream, but Nephis was a safe bet to make. She was a strong and ambitious woman who was mostly responsible for helping everyone in the shore survive. If anyone deserved to escape the most, it was probably her. But Cassie said it herself, the more she tried to change things, the more it seemed like her vision would come to pass, and by giving Nephis Sunny's true name, she unknowingly doomed her. Sunny doesn't hesitate for even a second to let Cassie know just how much he hates her for what she did. It's not even a heat-of-the-moment frustration, it's pure rage and bitterness without a single lie being told. He means every hurtful word he says, and in the end, he tells Cassie that he hopes he never sees her again. While I do understand Sunny's anger and sense of betrayal, I don't blame Cassie for what happened. She was forced to make a choice, and she made the choice she believed would be best without knowing the outcome. I mean, she knew Sunny would be enslaved, but she was also hoping that meant Neph's survival. And besides, Sunny may have a master, but that master is in another world fighting for her life, so, it could have been worse. Also, if I was Cassie, I would have made the exact same choice she did. Not to shit on Sunny or anything, but please understand, Nephis has white hair, and that alone is reason for me to try and save her. Sunny leaving the room, hoping to never see Cassie again, and Cassie hurt by the fact that her actions doomed both her friends. After leaving Cassie, Sunny plans to get even stronger. He's like 99% sure Nephis would never actually lord over him with the shadow bond, but just in case that 1% turned out to be true, he ain't taking any chances. Not too long after, Master Jet from the beginning of the series shows back up to give him his citizen status and notify him of his special ranking he's now got. Special Strategic Ascent, or just SS for short. You can tell this wasn't made in any Western country, because if it was, SS would have carried a whole different meaning. It basically means he's very likely to become someone of great importance, most likely a saint, and everybody and their mother wants a piece of Sunny, me included. He gets offers to join various legacy clans and the government and whatnot, but we all know Sunny ain't gonna choose any of those, because his whole thing is being free. His decision wasn't made immediately, but I already spoiled the surprise, so who cares. His goals are to get stronger and study up on all the things he's getting caught up in. Demons, Weaver, the Sovereigns, all that jazz. He reads up on the history of the Immortal Flame clan and how they fell to ruin. These books don't tell him any of that, but he makes assumptions based on what he reads. What he surmises is that the three great legacy clans are what make up the Sovereigns, and that it was them that destroyed Neph's father in the Immortal Flame clan. But who gives a damn about all that when there's money to be made? After studying like a nerd, Sunny compiles a report of the Forgotten Shore for his old teacher Julius. I don't think it was for money at first, I think he just did it because he likes teacher Julius. Fucking teacher's pet. It's an amateur report, but because the information within holds incredibly valuable info never before seen, Sunny is able to be paid for his discoveries. He could have just been some emo protagonist who's only interested in fighting and getting stronger, which he is, but he also has a couple hobbies to keep himself busy. I'm sure a lot of the things he researches will become important later, but for now I'm pretty sure he's just doing it because he finds it fun and interesting. That's really all the motivation he needs. After all this talk about money and research, they move on to the topic of the gods of the dream realm, and here I did something for the first time that I probably should have done from the beginning. I took notes! There are a total of 6 gods. I know, not 7, but I get the sinking suspicion there's a secret final boss that's actually the 7th god. The names of the gods are Sun, War, Beast, Storm, Heart, and Shadow. Ooh! We don't get details on all the gods, but there are some descriptions of them I found interesting. Now, stop me if you've heard of this one before. The sun god is the Lord of Light, the manifestation of fire, passion, creation, and destruction. Now, I can think of a pretty little lass who almost fits this description perfectly. There's also the war god, and I seem to remember one of our main characters having the nickname Athena, who is also a goddess of war in the real world. War in this universe is also described as the goddess of progression, technology, craft, and intellect, which also adds up to the goddess Athena. The only hole in this theory connecting Ward to Effie is the intellect part. I don't think I need to go over Shadow and his connection to another one of the main characters. Clearly, there is some connection to our main cast and the six gods. It could be something as simple as them being parallels to them, or it could be something more literal. Perhaps these characters are some sort of inheritor to their powers. Maybe they're the gods reincarnated since, they're all dead. It adds up as we do have 6 characters who can slightly relate to each god. Beast is the god of hunting and blood, and in the Bright Castle, that Szechuan chick or whatever was turning into a beast and killing people. Storm could possibly be the parallel to Kai, aka Nightingale. And while there's no info on Heart, the only other character to tie this one to is Cassie. I think the coolest option would be to just have them be inheritors of the gods' powers. That seems like the most likely option, as both Neph and Sunny have inherited the lineage of gods and demons, so that seems the most likely. The last topic Sunny and Julius discuss is daemons, and all I have written in my notes is that Weaver is a demon that came from nowhere. I have no clue what that means or why I only wrote that, but there you go. There's your Weaver backstory, I guess. In the next chapter, Sunny finally meets his friends for the first time in the waking world. And wouldn't you know it, Effie, Kai, and Cassie all got true names. Raised by Wolves, Nightingale, and Song of the Fallen. Also, I had just written down in my notes that Effie is a cripple, so, there you go, I guess. What more needs to be said? Actually, I will say more, because it's cute, but slightly depressing scene. I'm just gonna rip the line straight from the text, because I don't know how else to describe it. There was clearly something defective about her body. She was unhealthily thin, with pale skin stretching over brittle bones, and a strange twist to her spine. Her legs seemed lifeless and weak, tucked awkwardly on the step of her wheelchair. Her neck was clearly struggling to support the weight of her head. It all makes sense now. When the trio first meets Effie, she tells them how she thinks the dream realm is actually a paradise, and she really doesn't care if she never goes home again. At first, I thought it was going to be something else like mommy issues, or she was secretly the daughter of a legacy clan she didn't want to be a part of, or both. What I wasn't expecting was for her to look like that old lady from SpongeBob. There is something I'm confused about, though. The spell shaves off all forms of imperfection when awakened gets stronger, which is why everyone is so hot. And this does extend to their real-world body, as Kai had so clearly demonstrated in this scene. Why didn't Effie's body heal, though? If it was explained, I don't remember it, but Effie should be all healthy and, more importantly, hot. There's a cute little interaction where Effie does some sick tricks in her wheelchair, and when she asks Sunny if it was one of the coolest things he's seen, he says yes, one of the coolest by far. Thankfully, the end of this volume spells hope for Effie, and I can't wait to see how her of all people come out of the next major arc of the series. As you know, conquering the second nightmare causes your spiritual body and physical body to become one. So when you enter the dream realm, you don't just sleep and appear there, you actually physically go there. So if Effie does that, she will become an Amazonian beauty again. But what if her physical body became the one body, and she was stuck as a cripple both in the dream and waking world? That would be tragically funny. Sunny's area of choice to anchor himself is the region known as the Chained Isles. To just the north of it is the Hollow Mountains, the same region that also happens to border the Forgotten Shore. They're a series of floating islands connected by big-ass chains, and there is nothing but a dark void and dimly lit stars beneath the islands. And a pagoda, but we'll get there. They also float up, and in the air above the islands will literally crush you. Sunny doesn't outright say it, but we can all assume the reason he decided to come to the Chained Isles. If Neph were to cross the Hollow Mountains to escape, the logical place she would eventually end up would be the Isles. Of course, it would be really inconvenient if she didn't go through the mountains. After all, it's the most dangerous region in the known dream realm, so she could have just gone somewhere else completely different. This part starts with Sunny already familiar with the Chained Isles, and during this section, when he's stuck on an island during its ascent, he meets Roanne, an awakened of the Master rank and husband to the Isle Saint, who watches over this region of the Dream Realm. Her name is Tyrese of the White Feather Clan, which, if I remember, is a subsidiary of Clan Valor. She also has the true name Skytide, so that's neat. Officially, Sunny is on the Isles because he's sort of contracted researchers to go out and explore the Isles for cash, but we all know the real reason he's here. Sunny is a bit of a tsundere, honestly. When he looks at Neph in her pod, his mind bounces back and forth between killing her to be free and his overwhelming desire to see her again. Even if he did kill her, though, he wouldn't be entirely free. Nephis would still be alive in the Dream Realm and assumedly would still be his master. The citadel on the Isles that Sunny is attached to is the Sanctuary of Noctis. The name Noctis is important, but I forgot why. I think it was a prince or a city or something tying to the past of the Isles. There's also an obsidian knife on the main altar of the sanctuary that no one can move, even Saint Tyrese. The section of the Dream Realm is short here, mainly just to introduce us to the Isles and where Sunny will spend most of his time later. Also, he finds a gold coin, which is kinda cool. Upon Sunny's return to the waking world, he's met with messages from his friends, and Effie is just like me, for real. She keeps sending Sunny, and I quote, several mimetic memes of a questionable nature. Just take these memes, for example. Me and Effie are clearly soulmates. After beating off or something, Sunny visits Nephis to change out her flowers and talk about his day to her. Ever since 2016, when I got into Overwatch, I have been plagued by the mind of a shipper. Small, cute moments like these are the fuel I need to keep going. While nothing romantic is ever said, they don't need to be for you to understand just how much Neph means to him. He visits her mom because Nephis didn't like her being alone. He reminisces about when it was just him, Nephis, and Cassie, and how he misses those times despite how horrible they were in the moment. For better or worse, it's like Nephis has become one half of Sunny, and without her, he doesn't feel complete. Realistically, knowing Sunny's character, he should harbor just as much hatred for her as he does Cassie. Where Cassie pretty much gave away his freedom, Nephis used it and abandoned him. But whatever it is that he feels for Nephis is too strong for him to hate her, whether it's a sense of camaraderie or something stronger. Leaving Nephis, Sunny sets out to get down to business. Whenever the story describes the city Sunny lives in, I always imagine it to look like Night City from Cyberpunk 2077. It's futuristic, but also very cluttered and cramped, with lots of poor people living horribly unclean lives. The rich, on the other hand, live in posh green areas that almost make the city look like they care about the environment, but in all honesty, it's probably just as polluted, they just hide it better. Whatever city Sunny lives in seems very dystopic, but luckily for him, he's come into some money, so he doesn't need to worry about those broke bitches. Using the money earned from the Forgotten Shore, Sunny has bought a house in a nice suburban neighborhood that just so happens to be situated in the same area as his younger sister, Rain. To be absolutely clear, Sunny is not a creep. If we ignore the fact that he follows her to school, hangs out at a cafe across the street, and watches her every move while his shadow follows her, then he's not a creep. I had a feeling that Rain was going to become important in this volume, and she doesn't add a whole lot to the immediate plot, but she's definitely being set up to play a more major role, most likely in the 5th volume. At some point, the two of them meet, and when Rain discovers her neighbor isn't awakened, she asks him to teach her to prepare for the spell. During this whole thing, Sunny never lets on that he's Rain's brother. There was a small moment with Sunny that I found very humanizing about him, and it really shows just how torn up Sunny is inside. While he's happy to meet and talk to Rain finally, there's a small part of him that is upset at and resents her. Rain got adopted and was able to live a normal, happy life, while Sunny was left behind in the slums. He's happy for her, but also slightly resentful that she got that life and he didn't. He never lets this show, though, and he doesn't take out any frustration on Rain. Quite the opposite, actually. He's a very good teacher to Rain, and Rain respects Sunny very much. Even though she doesn't know he's her brother, they still do kinda act like siblings, which is nice and wholesome. One of a couple major plot points in this volume is the dreamscape, aka Sword Art Online. While the series does try to take itself seriously and has numerous amazing story moments that keep you on the edge of your seat, the dreamscape is mostly power fantasy filler, and I love it for that. At least right now it looks like filler. The only potentially important thing to come out of it is the introduction of Morgan of Clan Valor, who may or may not become important later. Other than her, the whole dreamscape is just turbo anime fan service, and it's great. Sunny dons a disguise by wearing the mantle of the underworld armor and Weaver's mask, while also using a charm to turn his hair white because, based. His goal here is to defeat other Awakened in the dreamscape to both develop his shadow dance fighting technique and strengthen the mantle of the underworld. He wins every fight because based, and quickly his alter ego known as Mongrel gains popularity. It's that classic anime trope of people gossiping to each other about how cool and interesting the protagonist is. Only this time Sunny doesn't even know about it for the longest time, and when he does, contemplates quitting so he doesn't get any more notoriety. He even becomes some sort of poetic warrior because anytime anyone speaks to him, Weaver's mask forces him to lie, and everybody takes it as him being deep and thought-provoking, when in reality he's just saying nonsense. Normally I'm opposed to filler because I think you should spend your time telling the story that got us here in the first place, but I'm okay with it this time around because it's fun, might come back into play later, and the series had 2 back-to-back volumes of pure cinema, so I think a little filler is deserved. The whole shadow dance thing is a bit odd, and one of the plot points I'm kinda least interested in, mainly because I have no clue what what it even means. Is Sunny like Taskmaster, where after observing people he can perfectly copy their fighting style? Or is he just taking inspiration to create an entirely new fighting style? Or is it both? I like a good fight scene, but hearing them yap about fighting techniques makes me yawn, because I just want them to fight, not explain the lore of their fighting techniques. Sunny does get a cool bow from Morgan of Clan Valor for winning a tournament, and your first thought would be that he gives it to Kai, but I think he's going to give it to Rain, because at one point Rain expressed interest in fighting with a bow. Also, if Kai used the bow made special for Morgan, it could easily be traced back to Sunny, which would be bad, but Rain, on the other hand, isn't popular like Kai and could use it without anyone realizing. A small accident leads to one of the biggest detours I've ever seen. When trying to interact at the altar near the gateway, the gold coin from earlier slips out and lands on the altar. The coin disappears, and Sunny gains a Scoutu tree fragment from it, so his next logical quest is to hunt down more of those coins, so he consults Rowan and his wife, St. Tyrese, where she gives him a clue about Shipwreck Island. It's situated near the center of the Isles, and Sunny mentions the middle of the Isles, but I'm a bit confused as to what he meant. It's speculated that the ivory pagoda in the sky was at the center before going up into the sky, and now it's said that in the center there's some sort of tear that will devour the whole region thousands of years from now. Is this like some sort of black hole? Is it like a nightmare seed where it opens up to somewhere else? It's never explained what the tear is, but since the author bothered to mention it, I assume it has to play some sort of role in the future. His first pit stop is to an island called the Reckoning, which has not a single monster in sight, except for a shape-shifting monster that can even take the shape of a shadow and attack Sunny's little friends. It then takes on the shape of Sunless himself, and we get a cool mirror match. Not only does this being take on the form of the person, but it can also copy their aspects and memories. The items, not their actual memories. Though I guess it does copy those too. At least the original guy does. After multiple chapters of anime nonsense in the dreamscape, the series does a complete 180 and hits you with absolute cinema and clever uses of the rules this world has established. The two are evenly matched, but Sunny wonders how much the mirror beast copies, so he leans in and tells Lost from Light to stop fighting, and the creature stops dead in its tracks. He then kills it with the Moonlight Shard because he's just as opposed to being a slaver as he is a slave. But I'm just saying, it would have been really cool if he commanded the thing to kill itself using the Shadow Bond. Lastly, he gets a cool memory from it called the Cruel Sight, which is a sword that works like Rin Amane's where it can absorb and use the elements. Wow, sick reference, Tom. Who the fuck is gonna get that? Also, the beast explodes into glass shards, and one has Beastie written on it, which is neat. Arriving at the Shipwreck Island, there is, hold your applause, a shipwreck on the island. It's in the dead center and has a cool tree growing out of the mast. Inside is a vine monster, but no one cares. What's also inside is a chest with thousands of gold coins. The problem is, the chest is actually a mimic. Someone in my first Shadow Slave video said the world would make a good Souls-like, and this is just further proof. I know mimics predate Dark Souls, but Dark Souls is mainstream, therefore they did it first. He fights it for a bit with a broken arm because that mimic wasn't going down without a fight. It runs off though, and Sunny chases it all across the Isles until they both end up on an island that's ascending. And because God hates Sunny specifically, that island is also being torn apart and falling into the sky below. With no other option, Sunny hops onto the mimic he just killed and rides that puppy down into the void for like a month or something. Eldritch horror is one of my favorite concepts in media, but it's very hard to get right, mainly because the source of the horror is the unknown, but in things like games, movies, and TV shows, that doesn't translate as well because you kind of need to see what is happening. It does work sometimes, like The Thing or Bloodborne does it well, but those are just rare cases. Shadow Slave flirts a little bit with cosmic horror with its gods and, most importantly, demons. In a last-ditch effort to not fucking die in the void, Sunny equips Weaver's Mask and activates the enchantment that's just a bunch of question marks. It's like a chapter and a half long, but the whole ordeal lasts like half a second. In an instant, he sees the threads of fate in its entirety. Millions upon millions of glowing threads flowing in every direction all at once. Only 2 threads are singled out though, and I think they're the only 2 that point outwards from Sunny himself. One is a thread of white-hot flames that's connected to the north towards the Hollow Mountains. The second is a golden thread going down into the sky below. Anything that glows gold is a clear sign that it's in some way connected to the divine, or demons in some cases. This infinite knowledge not meant for man almost kills Sunny before the void can, and he rips off of his face before he goes insane. Sunny is falling into the void, and really, he does nothing. I'm nothing, by the way. He falls for a couple days, then in the middle of the black emptiness, a voice calls out to him. This is Mordred, the Prince of Nothing. You know, to this day, I don't think I ever figured out why he's called the Prince of Nothing. He doesn't have a body, so I guess he just has nothing. He's a very kind fellow who helps out Sunny and talks him in the void to give him useful information. He warns Sunny of the sea of stars at the bottom and a small hole in the center that leads down into even more void. Mordred doesn't talk about himself a lot during this point, probably due to the fact he's a villain and he can't reveal his secret plan yet, but maybe I'm just paranoid. Below the not stars of divine flame is a pagoda, completely black and probably made of obsidian judging by the chapter name. You know what I really want to happen? Slightly off topic, but I really hope that one day Saint speaks. She's slightly emotive for an echo, making me believe she retains some part of her former self, and it seems whenever she reaches max shadow fragments, she evolves in some way, and I just hope that one day those evolutions allow her to speak. Then finally, she can be Sunny's actual girlfriend instead of just being his fake one. Sunny also travels solo most of the time, so it'd be nice for him to have a companion he can converse with, like a modern Sony story game where they just talk for 30 minutes straight about nothing. Also, this series is goated with its comedic timing. Even when it's in turbo serious mode, it knows how to slip in a tiny bit of humor without it being out of place. Like during his fall, Sunny goes crazy again for like the third time, and when he gets fed up talking to his shadow, he looks for his special rock to talk to instead. Or when he finds the black pagoda, he opens it up and we get a grand description of its gate opening, but when it cuts back to Sunny, he's peeking from behind Saint's shoulder, which made me audibly laugh. Nothing wrong with hiding behind a girl, by the way, it's just the visual I had in my head painted a very funny picture. Inside the pagoda are two important things. One is a gateway that leads to the ivory pagoda above the aisles, and the second is the severed arm of Weaver. Obviously, Sunny makes the only logical conclusion and eats one of its bones, which gives him super strong bones, like he just drank 10 gallons of milk. There's also a room with a bunch of runes that make you go mad by looking at them. Alright, theory time. The threads of fate, by the looks of it, are causing Sunny to follow in Weaver's footsteps, quite literally as he's going places Weaver had once been. My theory on Sunny's origin was that he, and I guess Rain too, were born in the dream realm, and that's why Sunny is different from everyone else. I also suspected that the woman he saw in one of his visions was his mother, and that woman was a priestess at a temple. Perhaps that temple wasn't in reverence for a god, but a demon, more specifically Weaver. Perhaps Sunny descends not only from that woman, but Weaver himself. He is called the Child of Shadows after all, and that could relate to the Shadow God more than Weaver, but we know next to nothing about Shadow, and for all I know, they could be the same person. Sunny powers the gateway to the Ivory Tower using the divine flames he picked up on his way down here, and is now high above the sky in the Ivory Tower. In here, he discovers the single most important thing he could have discovered, the seed of a nightmare. Entering this will allow him to challenge the second nightmare, and, if successful, will emerge a master. This is great news, not only for him, but his friends as well, especially Effie, since if she were to become a master, she would be free of her crippled body. In order to get back home, he takes a giant bone from a dead dragon-like thing that's on the island, and rides that bad boy all the way down. And by riding, I mean he hides inside of its shadow to not explode from the pressure of the crushing. In case Effie couldn't be even more best girl, well, second best girl, once she realized Sunny was gone for a while, she just forced herself into his house and set up shop while she waited for him to come back. It's a nice contrast to the beginning of the series. At the start, Sunny had no friends or family, and if he died in the first nightmare, the world wouldn't have changed. The only person to greet him upon his return was a government worker who was there out of obligation. Granted, Jet is based, but it was different back then. Now he has close friends who were worried sick about him and stayed by his side while they waited for him to come home. It's a small scene that shows just how far Sunny has come. Well, actually, it's more like how far his friends have come. Sunny strikes me as the type of dude who's very introverted and just gets adopted by people who want to be his friends. Sunny recounts the events of his adventure and asks them to join him in challenging the second nightmare. Well, Sunny asked Effie, but Kai really wanted to be included, so here he is. The only condition, though, is that Effie wants Cassie to join them, which Sunny is none too pleased about. I understand Sunny's frustration, but don't you think he's going a little overboard with the Cassie hate? I mean, she could have given it to Effie, and imagine the things she would have done with Sunny's true name. By the looks of it, he got off easy. There's also a movie made about the Forgotten Shore, and Sunny is the comedic relief sidekick, while Nephis and Castor are the madly in love protagonists, and hold on a sec. I can't believe I just got cucked by a fictional version of a fictional character. Their plan to challenge the second nightmare takes place 7 months from now, actually 6 months, and a few things are needed before that happens. One is to acquire the obsidian and ivory knife because Nothing Man himself said it would make things easier, which confuses me. The nightmare takes you back to a point in the past of the dream realm. Unless those knives played a part in said nightmare, I don't see how they could be useful. And correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't that nightmare take you to a random point in the world's past? Or is each one predetermined and these knives spawned with the seed? Or they could have just taken the knives that existed in the nightmare, assuming they play a part in the specific scenario they ended up in. Our next stop is the Desecrated Grove, where Cassie and her firekeepers are chilling. No, I have no clue why they're called firekeepers. I assume it has something to do with Nephis, though. The goal of the firekeepers is to cross the Hollow Mountains to try and rescue Nephis, but knowing what we know of the mountains, that's probably not gonna happen. They plan to do this by repairing the ship the Mimic was hiding in, because it's actually a flying ship, and the tree growing out of the mast is the source of the flying magic. Speaking of firekeepers, Cassie is described as having much longer hair and a silver half mask covering only her eyes, which reminds me of another firekeeper. So, therefore, Cassie best girl. Once again, I understand Sunny's frustration, but he's just a little too petty in his interaction. Even though Sunny can't lie, I don't think he truly means every hateful thing he says to Cassie. I just don't think he himself realizes it. Family can be a complicated thing. People often say that blood is thicker than water, but I've never agreed with this. There are some people who share my blood that I fucking hate, and others whom I share no DNA with, but would take a bullet for without a second thought. It's the experiences and memories you share with someone that makes them family, and even though Sunny and Cassie aren't actually related, I still think even now, Sunny views Cassie like a sister still. I am eventually proven right as the Night Temple will go on to show, but then again, when am I ever wrong? Also, the people in the reader's notes are weird. There are quite a few people who are genuinely villainizing Cassie, even more than Sunny, and I even saw one dude say that he hopes Sunny kills Nephis and Cassie so he can truly be free, and what? Being upset at Cassie is one thing, but wanting her to die is a whole new level of weird, man. Even during this point when Sunny is in turbo hater mode, I don't think even he wants her to die, and he sure as shit doesn't want Nephis to die, as he's already shown. Cassie just casually drops that come winter, both of them are gonna die. And I'm no psychic, but considering this is chapter 470 of almost 2,500, I'm assuming that isn't the case, at least for Sunny. Cassie agrees to join him in the nightmare on the basis that beforehand they kill the vine monster in the shipwreck I mentioned. The vine monster is a saint who had some fuck shit happen to her. I think it was a her. This is the ship they'll get flying to re-enter the obsidian pagoda and traverse the Hollow Mountains to save my wife. Last bit of filler to mention, because I love it so much, the movie about the Forgotten Shore, a song of light and darkness. I want to directly quote what Sunny says about the actor who plays him, because contrary to what he says, I think they casted him perfectly. It was a teenage boy of about 13 years of age, with a mischievous grin and a face that, for lack of better words, simply begged to be punched. Worse than that, he was shown as extremely uneducated, clumsy, and naive. He also has a catchphrase, "Are you crazy?" which is very ironic because I'm pretty sure everyone else has said that to him at least once. I think he even said it about himself during his time alone in the Dark City. Filler is fine when done well, and even if it doesn't add anything to the story, it helps build Sunny's reputation as a weakling, which is exactly what he wants. What I don't get is how the Sovereigns would allow something like this. They're essentially the Illuminati and control the whole world, but most importantly, they wanted Nephis dead, which is why they set Castor after her. So why would they allow a movie that paints her in such a heroic fashion to exist? Maybe because it would be too obvious if they tried to censor too blatantly, but our real world has shown that doesn't matter at all. In between now and Sunny and Cassie's trip to the Night Temple is when Sunny finally meets his sister Rain. There's also a gate opening in the city which resulted in Mongrel making a real world appearance, and Saint also showed up, which made some people think Mongrel is a lady, which is kinda hot. It's from this event that Rain asks Sunny to train her. There's also a tournament in the Dreamscape, which is where he met Morgan of Clan Valor, and there is a dope three-way fight scene, which was so cool the author was at a loss for words, so we didn't actually get to hear about the fight. I'm still pissed about that, by the way. The Night Temple ain't your grandma's ordinary citadel. The place is composed of a saint, 2 masters, and 100 awakened. All of those awakened are lost, meaning they have no physical body in the waking world. The journey to the temple is calm, but when they enter, things start to get weird. They have to empty out all of their possessions for inspections, including the world stuff Sunny brought over thanks to the memory he got from the Mimic. Items which included things like toothpaste, spices, broken mirror, which sounds unimportant, and bras, because Sunny is chill like that. Unfortunately, our good friend Mordred showed up, who was actually with Sunny the whole time, and used the broken mirror he brought to break loose from the Night Temple. The Night Temple was originally a place to stage expeditions into the Hollow Mountains, but that plan was abandoned, and now it's used as a prison to keep the Prince of Nothing locked away. At least I think that's its whole purpose now. It doesn't seem like it'd do a whole lot else. Out of fear, the Masters will lock up Sunny and Cassie in a cell, and if I remember correctly, they're in there for like a month. The whole time, Awakened are traversing the Night Temple like it's a Resident Evil level trying not to get turned into red mist by Mr. X, or in this case, Mordred. The most important part of this arc isn't Mordred like you would think, though. He is important. What's most important is the repairing of Sunny and Cassie's relationship. I always knew that despite Sunny's foul words to her, he never truly hated her, and he definitely didn't want her to disappear from his life. Perhaps his flaw doesn't apply when it comes to lying to oneself. The Night Temple is very reminiscent of their first time in the shore, traversing the labyrinth. Sunny was very overprotective of the girl, even though he kept telling himself he was a selfish bastard who would have left her behind if not for Nephis. Here, Sunny makes the bold claim of hating her, yet when things became dire for both of them, he reverted back to that overprotective nature he always had. I made the claim that blood doesn't always make family, but also at the same time, even when you argue and disagree with your family, at the end of the day, they are still your family, and all those arguments before seem so small and petty, you wonder why you were even arguing in the first place. I don't know if the two have fully made up. Shortly after this, the two enter the second nightmare and are separated, so they don't have a whole lot of time to talk, but I do think the two still have an unbreakable bond despite what Sunny says, and when all is said and done, the two will be even closer than they were in the Forgotten Shore. They do escape the cell. Mordred, possesses people, I think? I'm not sure about the specifics of his power, but I do know that he possesses the female master and Sunny kills the other one because based. Also, I forgot to mention, but like Nephis and Sunny, Mordred possesses multiple cores, and I think he has some divinity thing going on too. I don't know what the implications of that means. Is Mordred another inheritor of the god's powers? If so, that begs the question of which one, since I'm pretty sure I nailed down who each one could be. Perhaps the beast god if Sation doesn't appear in the story again. Who knows if I'm even right about that, but I think I am, because when have I ever been wrong? When the Mirror Beast copied Sunny back on Reckoning, it allowed Mordred to get a glimpse of Sunny's powers, including his true name and Shadow Bond, and he attempts to use this to force Sunny to kill Cassie, but since Sunny already has Nephis, this doesn't work, and Sunny tells him to go to hell since he already has a master, and it's the hardest line in the volume. It also makes me wonder if Sunny is getting used to the idea of having Neph as his master. I know for sure I would be okay with it. Saint Cormac arrives to finish off Mordred, and during the chaos, the two make a run for the exit. After leaving though, they're met by Cormac, who can't let them leave, but Skytide arrives just in time to save them. Apparently, all Saints have a transformation ability that lets them shapeshift into a certain type of beast, and a fight breaks out between Cormac and Saint Tyrese, and it paints such a cool picture. If Shadow Slave were ever adapted into something, this would be one of my most hyped scenes. It's like something straight out of a Godzilla film. Tyrese turns into a giant white bird and Cormac a jet black wyvern. Their clash takes to the skies into the clouds, and I imagine as lightning strikes you catch a glimpse of their larger-than-life battle. The battle is so fierce the entire island breaks and falls apart, sending the two flying down into the sky below. Thankfully, that ship from earlier was finished being repaired, and Kai came just in time to break their fall. As they're all recuperating, the severed head of a wyvern comes crashing down onto the deck of the ship, with Tyrese following shortly after. Alive, mind you. Tyrese leaves, and the Firekeepers make their descent to the Obsidian Tower. Only Sunny, Kai, Effie, and Cassie actually get off the ship. The rest of the Firekeepers head back up to the Isles. Sunny guides them through the tower to the Ivory Pagoda and into the Seat of the Nightmare. Together, the 5 of them set out on their journey to become masters. Wait, Sunny? Cassie? Kai? Effie? Must have just miscounted. All in all, pretty damn cash. Still not as peak as Volume 2, and to be honest, I don't know how the series is ever going to top Volume 2, but I hope it can. I read the first few chapters of the next volume, and it starts out pretty damn interesting, but I don't know how they're going to do an entire arc with Sunny like that, but I'm curious. There's a lot of filler, to be fair, but it's good filler, and doesn't take away from any of the actually interesting things happening in the story. To be honest, most of this volume just feels like setup. Setting up Rain, setting up Morgan maybe, Mordred definitely. Just a whole lot of setup that I have no doubt will pay off. Oh! Shit! I completely forgot, at one point we get a single cut to what Nephis is up to. She's traveling through a desert and comes across 2 skeletons hung up on a tree. They both offer to guide her to an exit, but she only accepts help from one. The name of that one is Eurus of the Nine. Obviously a Destiny reference, couldn't be anything else. They also call her one of Weavers, which is odd, but maybe they mean she belongs to Sunny, as in she's Sunny's wife, which would make a lot of sense then if that was the case. My favorite part of this whole volume is the relationship between Sunny and Cassie and the complicated family dynamic the two have. As much as I joke about shipping and whatnot, it's nice to have 2 main characters of opposite genders who don't end up madly in love. Same with Effie, but who knows, the man did talk about starting 7 legacy families, so she's still not out of the question. As silly as it is, I also do love the dreamscape. It's just good fun. It doesn't feel like it's meant to be taken seriously, and some of that every once in a while is nice, especially since the next volume is going to be all plot and story with no time for shenanigans. It's nice to get some of it while we can. I'm calling it now. Rain is going to fall under the spell while Sunny is away, and she's going to have to learn as much as she can without him, and when they both emerge victorious, Sunny is going to gift her the Midnight Shard, along with some spiel about how it saved him during his most desperate time, and he hopes it can do the same for her. Also the bow too, probably, but the Midnight Shard would be cooler. Once again, this must be said, this series is absolutely peak, and that random commenter on my video about the devil is a part-timer must be thanked again for introducing me to this amazing series. I'm going to continue to talk about this series, because it is my current autistic hyperfixation, and will continue to be so until I finally catch up. If I ever catch up. If you made it this far, do like and subscribe. I would really appreciate it if you did, and now I'm gonna go piss off and do something else. Okay, bye!